Okay. Ve okay. Esselamu Aleyküm ve Rahmetullahi ve Berekatuhu. Euzu billahi mineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli ve cealli veziran min ehli Harun ahi iştud bihi ezri ve eşrikve fi emri kay nusebbihake kethira ve nezkurake kethira inneke kunte bina basira. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. We will continue to study the story of Prophet David in the Quran, Dawood, and we discussed last week that this story was told during the first couple of years of Medina period, where the Muslim community in Medina was about to get the attack from, especially to start with Meccan polytheists or pagans, because they understood that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was really settling down in Medina and gaining lots of support from many people now. They were not expecting that much because the life of the Prophet the Messenger of Allah in Mecca wasn't that much successful as far as they understand the success in terms of number, quantity. So quantity-wise, not many people listened to the Prophet, and also not many rich people or other noble people of the society in the eyes of the people. I don't know who is noble, but according to them, they were not really chieftains and nobles of the community. So they thought if the Prophet leaves Mecca and goes somewhere else, of course they wanted to kill, that is another plot program, or that's their plan. But when the Prophet left Mecca, they said, okay, no one will listen to him now because he is a stranger among them. He will be a stranger among them. But in the course of time, what they realized that really the people are supporting him, listening to him, and also he is being an extremely successful leader. That is interesting. That is very interesting. So somehow similar background with the Prophet Joseph, because he was Yusuf. The Prophet Yusuf was a slave and then became the most prominent community leader or the administrator in power after the king. And when he was very successful in his administration, like the Prophet also was told this story during the last years of his Meccan period, saying that sometimes you may be an orphan, but another time may Allah appoint you as the most successful administrator of the time. That time, really, the growth of Medina community was incredible. So Allah demonstrates that he can give power to anyone he wants, and he can also take the property from anyone he wants. But of course, all this happens according to the laws of the universe, order of the universe. So we don't see any time which is happening unexpected things. Only the prophets were given some unexpected signs, which are called miracles, in order to demonstrate them they are employed by God. So we studied this verse last week, and we the people of in David's time, David's time, the children of Israel asked the prophet, their prophet. We said the name of the prophet is not mentioned, so it's not important, because there are many, many prophets employed by God throughout the history of human life. So it's not important. They asked the prophets to appoint a king or the commander-in-chief to lead the army and fight those people who expelled them from their country, from their homeland. And but they said, appoint a king so that we will fight in the cause of God. That is important. And the prophet appointed, and then they turned out to be saying that, look, we are ready to fight against the people who have driven us from our homeland. Why shouldn't we fight? But the direction of the war, fighting, changed in this verse, and we discussed about it last week. So let's come to our point today, which is is there anyone who would like to recite the Arabic one? Last week, somebody really wanted to recite it, the Arabic original of the text. Anyone? Arabic original of the text? No one? Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال لهم نبيهم إن الله قد بعث لكم طالوت ملكا قالوا إن يكون له الملك علينا ونحن أحق بالملك منه ولم يؤت سعة من المال قال إن الله اصطفاه عليكم وزاده بسطة في العلم والجسم والله يؤتي ملكه من يشاء والله واسع عليم. صدق الله العظيم. Now, the English translation is I. I hope somebody will read it. English translation.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, please. Right.
Their prophet said to them, the sign of his authority will be that the chest ark of the covenant will come to you. In it, there will be tranquility from your Lord and remnants of the followers of Moses and Aaron, carried by the angels. There is a sign in this for you.
There's a sign in this for you if you believe. We lost your visual, Brother Ali.
It was my mistake. I'm sorry. I'm going to share the text again. Can you read it from the beginning again, please? I confused everything. No, sorry, this one. Okay, are you ready to read this one again, please?
Sure.
Okay.
Their prophet said to them, God has now appointed Talut to be your king. But they said, how can he be king over us when we have a greater right to rule than he? He does not even have your great wealth. He said, God has chosen him over you and has given him great knowledge and bodily perfection. God grants his authority to whoever he pleases, for God is infinite, all-knowing.
Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Now we see the lesson, first of all, in the previous verse that, look, these people asked the prophet to fight for the sake of God in the path to God, but they turned out to demonstrate that their intention is to revenge because they were driven away from their homeland. Now, we have to understand that Quran, other verses also justify that if someone or any other power deprives you of your right, you have the right to defend. And also, if someone drives you away from your homeland, you have the right to fight and try to protect your homeland. Your right, it means in general, that is your right. But at the same time, while we are doing this, maybe in the form of an army or in the family or among your siblings, one of the elderly ones somehow really transgressing your right in the family life. You have to defend your right. Maybe if you cannot do it by yourself because you may be weaker than the one who transgresses your right, you can ask father or your mother, someone to help you and get your right back. You can do it, but we have to be extremely careful. While we are defending our rights, we have to do it in the name of justice, which is God's will. God wants to establish justice on earth and employs human beings to defend justice, to act in a just way, and to defend, to establish justice, to act, to defend the one who is right, who has a just attitude, or who is just. So we have to do it, but we have to do it in the name of God, not in the name of revenge. What was the lesson that the first recipients of the verse took from it? Yes, especially the Muhajirun, those who left Mecca and migrated into Medina. So those people were very fragile in their financial, social, political status because they came to a completely different city or place. They left all their properties behind, and some of them left their family members. Also, they didn't have anything in Medina to do, at least to start with, so that they didn't have any kind of opportunity to establish themselves within the society. So it is expected that they may be full of revenge, anger in their heart. So we will see that the following verses prepare the minds of the people. You have to do it just because for the sake of God, for nothing else. Yes, you have the right to defend your rights, but while you are defending your rights, you should never let your egoistic desires, your caprices, your sense of revenge, but you have to do it for the sake of establishing the justice, to defend yourself. If necessary, if it is the war conditions, if they try to kill you, you have to respond back, but not with a sense of revenge. That is, I am sure all of you must have heard this story of Imam Ali's story, that he was fighting with an pagan in the field war, in the battlefield. So battlefield, of course, everything is justified as long as the right cause must be in the minds of the people. So Ali was following a pagan, and the pagan ran away, and he fell down, and pagan split on Ali's face. He was about to kill him because it was the battle conditions, war conditions. This is a battlefield now, not an arbitrary, normal civil life. So the person spit or spat, I don't know the word, past tense, spat on Ali's face, and Ali stopped. And then he said, "Why didn't you kill me then? Because you were over me, and I fell down, and you had the sword with you. I dropped my sword, so why didn't you?" He said, "I was going to kill you for the sake of God, according to the rules established by God for war conditions. But when you spat on me, my anger increased, or my anger really overcame me, and I stopped because I wasn't going to kill you in order to satiate my anger. But I was going to kill you in order to fulfill the will of God, for the sake of God, because we were fighting." But the man said, "I spat on you in order to make you even more angry, so that you wouldn't only wound me, but kill it, because when you are wounded by the sword, at the end you suffer, and at the end you die. So I want to die on the spot without suffering, or going through the suffering period before death." And he was surprised that that is the pagan understanding. Imam Ali's understanding is the believer's understanding, just appropriate to the understanding of a student of the Quran, maybe a disciple of the prophet of God. So that is what we are going to take the lesson from here. But we will see that the people are going to be tested on severe conditions, but this is just a symbolic teaching that whether you really encounter with hardship, still you have to stick to the order, to the will of God, and for the sake of God. do not let your egoistic desires to overtake you. That is, we will bear in mind. Now, the first audience of the Quran's condition was this, but we have our conditions as well, because we have in our life many difficult times, difficult conditions. We may be treated in an unjust way, and our rights may be taken away from us. We had to defend ourselves, but never ever we forget that I would not do it in order to satisfy my sense of revenge, to soothe my anger, but in order to establish the justice. That's what we are going to learn, inshallah. Now, the verse says, their prophet said to them, God has now appointed Talut to be your king. Because they said, we are appoint a king so that we are going to fight in the path of God to reach God's pleasure. And the prophet said, okay, God appointed somebody who is called Talut to be your king. Look at the answer. But they said, how can he be king over us when we have a greater right to rule than he? Look at the trick now. The prophet says, God appointed this person, and prophet uses the criterion of God's will. We notice that it is obvious. But the people say that we have a better or higher grade in the society, as far as the property is concerned, everything. We have a greater right to rule than he, because Talut was an unknown person. Now, you can see that the prophet was an orphan, not rich, and didn't have a high status in the society, although he was respected as an honest man, trustworthy man, but it doesn't mean that he is going to be the leader of the community. So they said, who are you in Mecca? Who are you that you are claiming something? If something to be claimed, and if some guidance to be given to this community, it must be one of our great noble people. That was the criteria in their mind, and it is represented here. It is represented. We said, well, he doesn't have even greater wealth. You see the criteria? So in order to be the leader of a community, one has to have wealth. Does it remind you something? If someone is poor, it is impossible to be elected as a president in a place, not in the United States only, anywhere. That is so interesting. Wealth is the criterion to be the leader of the community or to be the commander of the army. Wealth is the criterion. So the prophet replies them, God has chosen him over you. Look, again, the prophet comes up with the criterion of God's will and has given him great knowledge and bodily perfection. Look at this, two things. Knowledge and bodily perfection, so that he can really be in the position of being a commander-in-chief of the army. It means knowledge and bodily perfection. God grants his authority to whoever he pleases. Whoever he pleases. It means God has the power over everyone else. He knows everything before everything. He has the power to see the future and the past and what is going on in the minds and hearts of the people, who is more qualified to this position or not. That is within God's knowledge. That's why the prophet said, God gave him great knowledge and bodily perfection. It means God prepared him for you. But those people say, or those people's understanding was strange, because they don't say that we have greater wealth, greater status as a result of God's will. They say we have wealth as a result of our own effort. It has nothing to do with God. So they are trusting on their own gainings, acquisitions. The prophet says, God gives wealth, God gives knowledge, God gives status, God gives authority to whoever he pleases. For God is infinite, all-knowing. Here, what is going on? It is very interesting for us, for me, and I'm sure you will find it interesting as well, because if we are going to evaluate any quality, if we are going to pass a judgment about anything, what are we expected to do? We are expected to use God's criterion, not our criterion. Our criterion is based on mostly on the conditions of this world, whereas God's criterion is based on his absolute knowledge. We can only decide by making comparisons which is possible for us within our knowledge as a result of experience of this world. Whereas God's judgment is based on his absolute knowledge. So what are we expected to do in our practical life? That's a very important question for me. What does it mean? Why is it important? Because while I am here in the world, of course, I experience the world. I experience the life conditions that I am in now. And I experience the values that the society uses. And according to these societal values, customary values, I pass judgment. I have to be very careful. What am I using now? My own observation of the world, my own values that I find in the society I belong to, but I have to, according to the teachings of this conversation between these people, of the people in general. We don't have to say the children of Israel, because this is for us. We discuss the children of Israel represent the people who follow the prophetic teaching, who are exposed to the prophetic teaching. So we are exposed to the prophetic teaching. Those people who are aware of the teachings sent by God, or the revelation sent by God, and these people are the children of Israel. So we are the children of Israel, as well as other people who are exposed to God's teaching, God's revelation. Whether it is somehow distorted, whatever, it is not the point, but the main approach is they think, everybody like us, that they are following God's teaching. That's it. That's children of Israel. And we are also children of Israel. But some of them are better positioned, some of them are not. That is in the eye of God, not I or me or you. So we don't pass judgment. Okay, so we have to understand that while we are living in this world, we experience the world. We hear the values of the society, but at the same time, if we belong, that is important condition. If we belong to the children of Israel, it means we are exposed to revelation from God, then we have to use our experience in the world that we are experiencing here, but we have to analyze our experience by the teaching of God, which we receive through revelation via the prophet, whatever the prophet is really conveying God's message to us. So through the experience of the prophet and get the message and try to find out the criterion established in the message, and then come to your experience and put your experience to test. Whether this experience, the conclusion of my experience in the world, is appropriate or in accordance or in harmony with, compatible with the teachings of the revelation. It means God's criterion. We cannot say that well, my experience in the world is worthless. No. Look at the verse which says, God has chosen him over you, and he has given him great knowledge, that is great knowledge from God, and bodily perfection. It means in this world, the commander-in-chief of an army must be bodily perfect. It means in this causal world, we have to follow the causal order, which is also established by God. By following the order of the universe, we are following the will of God. But is it enough? No, we have to check our conclusions. Our conclusions as a result of the experience of the order of the universe with the teachings of the revelation, and then come to the conclusion after checking my conclusion, my judgment, with the judgment prepared for me, presented to me, but in the revelation. What does it mean? Now, we know that there is a great difference between studying the universe. For example, I may do some experiments in a lab and realize that the order of the universe works in this way or another way. So as a result, I can discover something in the universe as it is created by God, as it is established by God. I can discover some principles of creation. It means how God's will is manifested in the universe to me. That is my bodily perfection. I'm just making the comparison. But when it comes to knowledge, it means, for example, I found out, let's say they call it law, they call it natural law, well, God forbid, nothing is natural, all God willed, creator willed. So the law cannot happen by itself. Nature means the thing happens by itself. So it is contradictory, you know. The law cannot happen by itself. If something happens by itself, it is impossible. But if it was even, it would be an haphazard, accidental thing, not an order, not a law, which means established principle in the creation of the universe, in the existence of the universe. That is law. So they call it natural law. We call it sunnatullah. It means the way God creates. It is the manifestation of the will of God. Okay, I found out how the will of God has been established in the world, so I discovered it. Now, what am I going to do now? Interpret this event. What the scientists do, they discover something. Yes, we appreciate it. We are thankful to them. And really, we need their, it helps us. We need their discoveries. Discoveries, not inventions. They don't invent anything. They just discover what is already there in the universe. So we have to be careful not to use invention for any human being.
I have a question, Dr. Ali. So about the natural laws, right? What if you use it to mean the order in the universe? Is that like contradictory? Like
sorry, repeat it, please.
Like I mean, like natural, as you said, like everything in the universe is created and nothing is natural, but like it's not maintaining itself. It's not. It did not create itself. So like, what if? But like that's how they like some biologists they believe. But what if by natural law I mean that is the order in the universe that is ordered by God?
Oh, confused again. So
okay, by that I meant like when I use natural laws, I could mean that it is a law designated by God. Is that like you said? Don't natural law using that word, it can be like like it might mean something like that we don't mean. Like how am I saying it? It's like also like the secular, like people who do not believe in God, they use the same thing to mean that it was created by itself and it maintains itself. But when I use it, I could mean that it is a law that is designated and that is ordained by God. Does that make any difference? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
No.
I'm just saying like a different usage of the natural law.
Now, natural law means a principle which happened to be naturally by itself from its own nature. For example, water boils at such and such degree, right? So what does it mean? If I say there is a law there, principle there, water boils if everything, other conditions are the same at this degree of heat, okay? If I say this is the natural law, it means this principle of boiling at this stage of heat, degree of heat, is natural, intrinsic to water by itself. The water itself, not it is established, not it is created by the creator of the universe, so that water it has to follow the law of the creator, not by itself, like you and me. I find myself with lots of emotions, feelings, etc. I find in my being life, power to think, quality of hearing, understanding, consciousness, conscience, and lots of many, loving and also fearing, lots of qualities you see in me. if I say this is natural, it means it is by itself. It is by itself, not nature. What do we mean by nature? The universe itself. So if one says, I believe in God, so the universe has been established, nature created by him, and if I say nature created by him, by nature, the word nature, I mean the universe. Now, but natural means belonging any quality which belongs to the matter itself. There is no external agent. It belongs to the matter itself. We have to understand this. So we have to be very careful to avoid this expression. But in the class, you are studying something and you have to write something. The teacher, professor doesn't understand it, and you cannot express yourself as if you use another language, the professor would think that, oh, you don't know even natural laws, something like that. So the practical personal matters are not the subject of discussion here. But theoretically, I have to know that the matter is created by the creator of the universe. So I have to see how the universe is working, but while I am analyzing this matter and explaining it, I have to be very careful not to use false language, which means water boils by itself. It is a natural law. For example, and I don't know, water runs towards down. Exceptional cases are different, but not up. That everything is subject to gravity, or this kind of language when we use it. But we have to explain, we have to be careful that we should not attribute it to the matter itself. We have to be careful, because matter cannot be the source of its quality, like you and me cannot be the source of our human qualities. Anything, for example, even our nerve system, digestive system, and our skins, shapes of every organ, and our body, color, everything. Are we the source of existence of these qualities, or are they given to us, given to our cells, and the cells are employed by the will of the creator of the universe? Cells cannot act by themselves. We have to make this distinction. Like I have power, for example, I worked on the land. Let me give a very simple example. I worked on the land. I planted something there, some vegetables, and plants grew, and then I collected some vegetables from the plant. Can I say that I produced these vegetables? I have to be careful. Did I produce it? Can I say that the plants grew in such a way that they produced the vegetable on them? Look at that. Is it possible that the plant produces, it is tomatoes, I don't know, eggplants, or whatever, carrot, whatever, or fruits, all kinds of fruits on the tree? So do you think the wood is producing it, or the cells of the wood? I mean, wood means collection of cells. Cells means collection of atoms, particles. So the particles are the programmers of these events. So we have to be careful while we are interpreting how the universe is working. So I have to say, I am a farmer. I planted this and that vegetable and it grew, but I didn't grow it. Water cannot grow it. Sunlight cannot grow it. They don't have no free will. And the cells of the plant cannot grow it because they are subject to laws, principles, functioning in the universe. So we have to be careful to notice the distinction between what we find, how the universe is working, and how we interpret these sequences of events, by either attributing the conclusions or the effects to the material causes, or attributing the, whatever we call them, cause and effect, water and plant, water and vegetable, for example, air and vegetable, to each other, but say air, sunlight, water, minerals in the earth, and the system of the universe, all of them have been established by the one who gave existence to the universe. So the interpretation is completely different from interpretation of how the things grow, is completely different from physical experience of the matter, how it is created, how it is established. So we have to be very careful by making the distinction between the two. I mean, scientists say, we discovered this. They don't say discovered, invented. So, but we say discovered. That we discovered this, we understood how the universe is working, and on top of this, they interpret how the things are happening according to the natural sequences of events, nothing to do with an agent, conscious creator. So we have to be careful about the interpretation, although we can comfortably use our telephones or computer or anything produced as a result of scientific discoveries. It is different from using the telephone, is completely different from that the systems of the telephone found out, discovered in the universe. These systems are working by themselves. They are subject to the will of the creator of the universe. Otherwise, we will find ourselves in contradiction, saying that matter is the source of knowledge, matter is the source of wisdom, matter is the source of will. So that the matter will arrange the order in the universe so perfectly working so that we are benefiting from it. I hope it is a little bit help, at least something to think about, something we can think about it. So what was the criterion? One of them said, we have wealth, it means the wealth belongs to us, and the values in the society must be established on matters, whoever has it more. But the prophet says, no, values must be established by God's choice. Knowledge is given by God, and also your wealth, your property are created by the universe, by the creator of the universe, God. So you cannot say that this is my property as if you have created it. No, you are given only. So acknowledge that you are given the property, so the one who gives you the property has the right to decide how to use it. And we are given the property, we have the right to acknowledge it, not to take proud of it. Acknowledge what? They are given to us by our Creator. Acknowledge that. But we are given, thank God, I can only use God's property within the will of God, which is according to His will. So how can I know His will? His will appears in two ways. In the creation, His will says, don't waste it. If you waste it, you are losing the property which is given to you. You are wasting it. And also, according to the teachings of God, through the prophets, we receive the teachings, and the teaching says, use it in this way, don't use it in this way. And also teachings of the Quran says, use your mind in this way, not use your mind in that way. Reason in this way, don't reason in the way which is wrong. You can understand it. It gives the guidance. It gives the guidance, and I have to adjust myself according to the guidance taught by God Himself as the owner of the universe, as the owner of my body, and as the owner of my being, as the owner of my property. Everything belongs to Him, but I am only using it. I cannot say that because wealth is given to us, we are superior to others. Those others over the ones who have not given wealth as much as we are. That is what the criterion is used by them. And now, what is the conflict now between the prophetic message and the people who defend them, who defend themselves that we deserve to be the king much more than this unknown man, poor guy? It is interesting, we may also have this attitude. How? I understand that we may have some sort of inferiority complex, being poor and admiring those people who are rich. That how the Quran describes Qarun, and the people saw his wealth, so much amazing wealth, and they said, if only we had some of it. You see, admiring the wealth of a person rather than saying that Allah gave him this wealth and I will ask Allah, God, to give me some wealth for me as well. Rather than admiring his wealth, we have to admire God's generosity. And we have to trust in God's generosity. So we have to say, oh God, give me some as well. Not that admiring the property belonging to Qarun. That is, of course, different subject, but we are here invited to pay attention which kind of criterion we use in the world while we are passing judgments. The prophetic criterion or our own egoistic criterion. We have to make the distinction. Now, we don't have much time, but shall we pass to the next verse, or what shall we do? God grants his authority to whoever he pleases, for God is infinite, all-knowing. Now, we can talk about this God is giving authority as well to whoever he pleases. Authority, for example, you are in a family and you are the youngest one, maybe younger sibling, younger one among your sibling, and someone in the family or one of your brothers or sisters were born before you were born. So are you going to be jealous of them? No, because that is God's choice, not your choice. You are created in this position. Now you have to accept it. And also, God has given some wealth to somebody and not. You have to watch out whether you are following the order of the universe, which is established again by God. It means following the will of God properly. That is what we have to think within the conditions of this world. But at the end, we have to leave the final decision to God. For example, somebody is doing some job and he is successful there. The farmer, for example, he planted something and he planted, let's say, some grain, and he got that amount of grain, and you planted, but it may not grow as much as his. But you have to only pay attention whether you have followed the order of the creation perfectly or not, or as much as you can. But the result is not up to me. Result is up to the Creator, because we cannot create the grain. We cannot control the growth of the grain. That's why we have to see that God's authority is over everything. So God gives wealth, God gives knowledge to people he likes. But we have to pay attention to our duty, which is, how am I really utilizing my time? How am I serious about investigating the way God creates the things in this world? For example, I cannot say that while I don't study what needs to be done, what needs to be studied, listen to the professor carefully, coming to class prepared, knowing that what we are going to be taught, and what you don't know, what you know, accordingly you will take the notes about the part that you didn't know, so you will be extremely careful there. And then do your exercises, assignments, etc. at the end. And then whatever you learned, you kept in your mind. Of course, you have to concentrate. You know, while you are doing the things, your mind may be really wandering around, thinking something else. We have to follow the rules, but the result is from our Creator. That's what we have to be sure. We have to take care of our responsibility and be extremely careful about our responsibility within the established law, the principles of the universe, order of the universe. And we have to bear in mind that this order has been established by our Creator. So when I follow the order, I have to bear in mind that I am following the will of the Creator. Not I am how do you say, bound by the laws of nature. It means blind, not knowledge, matter. I am the slave of matter. But we have to know that I am subject to God's will. Matter is subject to God's will. As I have a Creator, that's what I must have, because within my own life, within my own experience, I understand that I cannot be the source of my qualities. I didn't make them. The source of qualities of everything. Cells, for example, source of qualities of cells is not the cell itself. It is given the order, and according to the order of the universe, they have to act. They don't have any free will that they don't follow the order of the universe. They have to follow the order of the universe. It means they are the slaves of the order of the universe. Again, the order of the universe is the slave of God, the creator. Who established this order? We have to be very careful that we are conscious of this reality. So while I am studying, while I'm working, doing something, whatever we are doing in this physical world, we have to be conscious that I am following the will of Creator. And the result is going to be created by God again. So I am following the order. God is deciding about the result. I have to take care of my responsibility to follow the order perfectly, but at the same time, I have to take care of my responsibility while I am following the order to be very conscious of the fact that I am following the will of God. Two responsibilities. Obey the order of the universe. Bear in mind that while you are obeying the order of the universe, in fact, you are obeying the will of the Creator, because the order of the universe is the will of the Creator, not the matter, not the nature itself. That's what I understood from this wonderful verse. The criterion is very important. Which kind of criterion I use for my judgments? The prophet says, God is the criterion, and the people say, my wealth is the criterion. That is what we are presented here, completely contradictory two situation. So it is a lesson for us now. We don't know who Talat is. We don't know who Dawud is. We hear that it is a prophet, but I don't know him. But since I'm presented as a story of Dawud in the Quran, I say, okay, the Quran says Dawud and he was a prophet. Okay, why not? Because Quran is a speech of God. I have no evidence otherwise. It means deny that, no, there was no such people. I don't know. The Creator knows. Must know, otherwise we cannot see the universe working that perfectly in the world, in our experience, within our experience. So the Creator takes care of everything, and Creator knows in the past, in the future, must be, because He is the owner of the universe. Otherwise the universe it cannot exist by itself. Now we have to say that God is taking care of everything. God knows. God said, such an event happened. We say, okay, but why do you tell me this? I say, and then I understand that, there is a really, really very applicable message to my life here, now. I have to use the criterion accordingly. Be careful while I am using the criterion. According to what? This man is very successful. According to what? Successful what? This man is, the criterion must be very knowledgeable. According to what? Some people have knowledge, but with this knowledge, they may deny God, because misuse the knowledge. Because human beings have free will. We can distort the knowledge. We can attribute it to ourselves rather than saying that God has given me this quality, this knowledge. We can do that. For example, with the knowledge, they deny God, because the knowledge is used in the name of the person himself, not in the name of the Creator, and acknowledging the source of the existence of knowledge. This is a very practical subject. Thank you very much. Inshallah, we will continue next week. So the following verse.